I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, tonight is Thursday, December 7th. We have a few stories to go on tonight for the weekly update. It's been kind of a wild week around here. Few things have happened nationwide. We've had a few incidents. I'm sure you've heard little bits of them. We're going to go and do a little bit of a deep dive into those. However, before we get into those, we're going to start off with a little bit of good and positive news. And the first story of a little good and positive news comes to us as a legal update out of West Virginia. District Chief Judge Thomas Clea with the Northern District Federal Court of West Virginia basically wrote out the ban on sale of handguns to 18 to 20-year-olds. Up to this point, you could buy a rifle or a shotgun at 18, but you had to be 21 to purchase a handgun. Well, a case was brought saying that this was an unconstitutional infringement on the rights of those 18 to 20-year-olds. Now, this is a case that's been approached several times. This time, the federal courts ruled it out, basically stating that 18 is adult enough that thou shalt be able to buy a handgun. As a result of this, again, your mileage may vary in other areas, but he basically wrote that it does not find anything as far as it being anything besides arbitrary, saying that, well, 18 is good for this, but 21 is good for that, and it was arbitrary, capricious, and therefore did not fit within the text, history, and tradition of any regulation that 18 is adult. So therefore, again, hopefully that comes down and we get into the point where 18-year-olds can exercise all of their rights. Let's face it, you're old enough to join the military. You're old enough to go out and sign for a car, sign for a house. You're old enough to travel overseas. You're old enough to basically walk away from your family if that's what you so desire. But why weren't you old enough to perform this one act? Now, I think this is kind of important. And the reason I say that is, think about the 18 to 20-year-olds. Why would somebody want to buy a handgun? Well, potentially for self-defense, for personal protection. Think of how many of these 18 to 20-year-olds might be working jobs at nights or in a strange area, bad area. How many of them are working, possibly having to do Uber or DoorDash? How many of these 18 to 20-year-olds might be out and about and run into some sort of problem where they would need to protect themselves? Why should this 3-year gap require them to be defenseless for all intents and purposes, or prevent them from exercising their Second Amendment rights to protect their life, liberty, and property? So, okay, congratulations. That's taken care of. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Judge Clea. We appreciate it. I'm very pro 2A. I'm very pro the ability to protect yourself. So from that standpoint, really happy to see that happen. And again, I think it's a very positive situation. So got to give hats off on that one to the Second Amendment Foundation. They pushed on it, and they were the ones who supported and helped win this case, thus getting these 18 to 20-year-olds their rights. Beyond that, another little legal update. As many of you know, there's been a big push on some of the FFLs. There's been a lot of FFLs getting their license yanked, many times over minor paperwork. What was a year ago a minor paperwork glitch or something that just wasn't filled out correctly was now being seen as a reason to yank someone's FFL. Now, I understand the need to fill out forms completely, but for one box that's not checked or one thing that's not filled out or a zip code not matching something, yeah, it's not worth, pulling someone's FFL over, in my opinion. Okay, we give them a caution, we give them a warning, we put them on probation, we audit them more often, but we don't necessarily yank someone's FFL, their federal firearms dealer's license, over a minor paperwork glitch. That was a little bit excessive. Well, there was a gun shop in Florida that was going through a lot of drama with the ATF, and they ended up where they were trying to suspend their FFL or pull their FFL completely for nothing but a minor paperwork glitch. A lot of dealers are seeing this, and it's pretty much been suggested that this is a bit of a war on against FFLs. Well, thank you to GOA, Gun Owners of America. They helped this small business push back and actually got the ATF to back off pulling their FFL. You know, if someone's dealing illegally or not running background checks at all or selling to felons, hey, pull their ticket, definitely. But if it's a minor paperwork glitch, we don't shut down someone's business that they're feeding their family with over that. That's garbage. That's, absolutely ridiculous, and it's got, a bit of an issue in my book. So congratulations. They got their FFL stuff taken care of. So they're going to keep their business. Really nice to see. And again, thanks to GOA for that. Gun Owners of America, help them push back on that one. So that was, again, a big win on that, not only for that individual gun owner or that own gun store, but also for 2A as a whole. We know that the current administration is not a big fan of 2A and our rights to protection. So if they're going to attack what? The manufacturers, they're going to attack the dealers, they're going to attack ammunition dealers, they're going to attack, everything. Well, pushing back and keeping that business in business is a good thing. Now, on to a little bit darker topic. You may have heard that there was a bit of a shooting incident down in Texas. It was between Austin and San Antonio, and there's actually two halves of it or multiple parts of it, and we're going to go over that. It first started and was first reported to law enforcement around 10:45 on Tuesday morning. Shots were fired, and a law enforcement officer, a sergeant with Austin Independent School District, was wounded. Now, he was near a school. He was out at a ball field, and somebody opened fire on him, wounded him, fortunately not critically, and he will be okay. Well, shortly after that, about an hour or so later, there was a double homicide on another street, not particularly nearby, but close enough. And it was a double homicide. The first person shot was a mother, 24-year-old woman pushing a stroller with her baby. She was able to get her baby out of the line of fire, but she was wounded and killed. Well, then someone tried to come to her rescue, a Guatemalan immigrant, 32-year-old father of three. He was out getting into his car, getting ready to go to lunch. He was working in a carpentry job part-time, and he was getting ready to go to lunch, and lo and behold, someone opens fire, killing him. So we've got these two shooting scenes, one at 10:40, one about noon. No real connection between them. Well, 5 o'clock that evening, police get a call. There's a cyclist who's been wounded. Fortunately, his wounds, again, non-life-threatening, but somebody just randomly opened fire on him. Well, by the time law enforcement responds, shooter gets away. Well, 7 o'clock that night, Austin PD gets a call for a burglary. They respond to the house. Somebody engages in a firefight with them in the backyard. There's a suspect there. He shoots at the responding officer, wounds him multiple times. Again, fortunately, non-life-threatening injuries. The officer was wounded. He did manage to shoot rounds back, however, missed, and a pursuit ensues. The suspect ends up crashing their vehicle and is arrested. Well, they run the suspect's information, and by this point, let's tally this up. We've got a police officer wounded at the ball field. We've got two people killed. We've got the cyclist wounded, so we've got two dead, two wounded. They go to the house where the burglary was, and they find someone had broken in and killed the two people there. So we've now got 4 dead, 2 wounded, plus the officer who was responding. This guy caused the mess. And this is, again, over a span of several hours. Well, they go back, they run his information, and they send San Antonio police to his last known residence where he lived with his family. San Antonio PD gets there, and they find 2 people dead. They believe the suspect's parents. Now, this guy clearly has got some issues and clearly Rather, sick. We'll just go with sick. That's going to be my nice version for tonight, sick. And it's okay. What is the deal? Why is this guy running around doing this? What do we know about him? Well, we know that the guy was 34 years of age, white male. We know he's had previous encounters with law enforcement. He's had a couple of them. In 2017, he was arrested by Fort Worth PD for a simple criminal trespass, minor charge. Nothing really came out of that. Now, in January of 2022, he was arrested for assaulting his father, mother, and sister. Now, this is really interesting. Domestic assault. Now, it was a misdemeanor domestic assault, but 3 charges in January of 2022. Well, he was in jail waiting a trial. He couldn't make bond. His bond had been $1,500, but in March of 2022, they managed to petition the court to get his bond reduced, and he was put out on an ankle monitor. Now, his bond was reduced from $1,500 down to $300, and he was bailed out by a Texas civil rights group known as the Texas Organizing Project that tries to help people who are low income or otherwise disaffected or otherwise supposedly oppressed by the system. Well, they posted the $300 bond to get him out of jail and put him on an ankle monitor. Now, I understand he's innocent until proven guilty. And I understand their concept that he shouldn't have to rot in jail just because he doesn't have $300. However, he thanked them for doing this and showed his appreciation to the court that reduced his bond by cutting his ankle monitor off less than 24 hours after getting out of jail. Yeah. Now, this at the time in Texas was a misdemeanor. So it didn't warrant an immediate felony response. Basically, there was a misdemeanor warrant put out once they sensed that the ankle monitor was no longer on him. Nobody really knew where he was, so to speak, etc., etc. Well, guess what? He has a mental health crisis in August of 2023. Now, he's been out on a misdemeanor warrant for over a year, and he has this mental health crisis. He's at the house with the family. He is very aggressive toward law enforcement. He barricades himself in his bedroom because it was only a misdemeanor situation. They go ahead and try to de-escalate the situation and refer him and his family to mental health. The family talks about how he's having problems with mental health, and we make every excuse for him, and his family makes every excuse for him. That's August of 2023. Well, here we are. It's December of 2023. 6 people are dead. His family, the 2 people in the house that were broken into, 2 strangers on the street, including a 24-year-old mother of a newborn child and a 32-year-old father of 3, Guatemalan immigrant who came here to make a better life for himself and his family. How many excuses are we going to make? Look, it's a mental health issue. I've said it before on this channel, and I'll say it again. It's not a gun issue. I don't know how or where he got the gun. That hasn't been reported yet. Again, this is all Tuesday of this week. But at some point, we've got to draw a line in society as a whole and say, look, if someone has mental health issues to the point that they are violent or aggressive, we need to do something besides just leaving them back out on the street to let the next accident or incident happen. You know, he attacked the family, his father, his mother, and his sister, assaulted all of them in January of 2022. That should have been enough. Get him help, get him something, do whatever we've got to do. I know they've, shut down a lot of the inpatient mental health treatment facilities, but something has to give with this stuff, because if it doesn't, we have these incidents. Unfortunately, situations like this are let go and let go and let go until we have a tragedy. And then immediately we have a tragedy and everyone says, well, why did this happen? Well, we had somebody who was violent. We reduced the bond. He cuts the ankle monitor off. That's only a misdemeanor. He's having a mental health crisis. He has contact with law enforcement while he's got a warrant out, but it's only a misdemeanor. So we de escalate. This is just enabling bad things to happen. If we tell police and law enforcement and the mental health system not to take any hard, aggressive actions until we have a tragedy, what happens? Everything leading up to the tragedy is ignored or pushed away or explained or enabled, and we enable the tragedy to happen. And it's sad. My heart goes out to the two people who were killed in the house. My heart goes out to the people, again, father of three, construction worker, working contracting, going out to lunch. But on the other side of the coin, let's look at the house he broke into. I don't know anything about those people, don't know anything of their history. But if a maniac with a gun who's mentally deranged breaks into a house, guess what? There was one thing that would have stopped him. Why did he not have any better luck, trying to kill the police officers? He shot at 2 police officers, 3 police officers. They shot back. That's the only thing that stopped these attacks, was somebody was able to shoot back. The people who weren't, sadly, they didn't live to talk about it. And that, again, is one reason why I am so hard with protecting yourself, protecting your family, learning how to do what you need to do to stay alive. Because people like this are walking the street every day. Alrighty. Now, we dug into his background a little bit beyond the criminal stuff. This gentleman had actually served in the United States Army for about 2 years, which is a little questionable. We don't know the nature of his discharge. The military is not releasing that at this point. But he was last as a first lieutenant in the U.S. Army Infantry in August of 2015. He left due to an unknown reason. We don't know why, but no deployments, no documentation of what he's been doing since then. Again, this is fairly new. I'll follow up on it if there's any major developments. I also want to know where he got a gun, if he's out on bond. He's out on bond for multiple assaults. What are we doing? Again, something got enabled here to let go. Beyond that, then this one jumped across my desk last night, and it was kind of wild. For those of y'all who don't know, there was an active shooter at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas yesterday. Now, this started at about 11:45 in the morning. Male suspect entered Beam Hall, went up to the 4th floor of Beam Hall, and started shooting there. Now, from what I understand, this is a business administration classroom, a business administration, business school. He's up there, begins shooting, and ends up killing 3, wounding 1, stable condition from what I gather. And it later turns out that all of the people who were wounded were all staff members. No students were wounded at all or injured at all that we know of. The shooter was not a student, nor was he an employee of the college. He was a white male, 67 years old, and he actually was a professor, although not a professor at this college. He had tried to get a job at this college previously, was turned down, not hired in 2020. He had recently been to Las Vegas several times. He was formerly a professor at both the University of Georgia, now UGA, and Eastern North Carolina University, or Eastern Carolina University out in Wake County. Now, he was at Eastern Carolina for 17 years, and overall described as unorthodox, a little bit eccentric, but generally a good professor. No problems really identified that we know of. Haven't heard anything from any coworkers there about him being a raging maniac, lunatic, or anything like that. So, okay. They mentioned that he had made numerous trips to Vegas over the last 15 years. He wrote blogs and travel blogs about his trips to Vegas. And so, okay. All in all, for whatever reason, he left his job in 2017 after 17 years there, and is living in an apartment in um, Nevada in 2023. Where he was in the spirit, we don't know. One thing to mention here, both of these shootings occurred with handguns. There was no assault rifle or AR-15 that we know of involved in any of these, and that is a big one to me. And the reason I say it's a big one to me, what do we always hear? Well, it's the assault weapon, it's the bad gun, it's the whatever you want to say it is. Folks, this was not the assault weapon. This was not the bad gun. This was just, it happened. How it happened, why it happened, I don't know. But again, opens fire with a handgun, kills 3, wounds 1. As he is leaving, campus police engage with him. He is taken down, shot, and killed by 2 campus detectives. And at that point, they sound the all clear about 40 minutes after the incident started. So, overall, definitely a really interesting situation for somebody who had applied for a job there 3 years ago, wasn't hired. For whatever reason, he went there and apparently started picking off faculty members. Maybe he figured he'd make an opening on the staff. I don't know. I don't get it. Again, many times we don't. As far as they're looking through his phones, his electronics now, they did go search his apartment with a bomb squad, which is typical. Didn't find anything there as far as explosive devices. They're going to look through his writings, his bloggings, documents, his phone, and try to find out what, if any, connection he had with any of these faculty members, if he knew any of them. Again, this one hit less than 24 hours. This one hit, well, the all clear was about 24 hours ago, was given. So that gives you an idea kind of where we're at. It's still very, very, very new and hot off the presses. And as a result of that, well, don't have all the details yet. I will be following up on it as always to see what else I can find. Now, first thing that came out immediately when this was announced was how we need to be able to have kids go to school without, worrying about active shooters. I agree. People need to be safe in a college environment. I agree. The response I have and have had with quite a few folks on Twitter who have been very upset with me. Another shooting in a gun-free zone? Did the shooter not read the signs? Were there not enough signs posted? Here we have a gun-free zone. What happens? Again, if you look at John Lott's research through Crime Prevention Institute, 85 to 90% of our shootings that are occurring, these mass shootings, are in what? Gun-free zones. The man made entry to the building, made it all the way to the 4th floor. No student ID, no pass, no hall pass, no buzz card, swipe card, nothing. And is able to walk all the way to the 4th floor with a loaded weapon and start shooting people. So it is what it is, folks. And of course, the political side coming out of this, we're seeing really interesting because the Senate had introduced an assault weapons ban recently, and that got pushed back. And of course, they said, well, look, this is getting pushed back right after these shootings at UNLV. Folks, what an assault weapons ban has to do with a 60-year-old professor with a handgun, I don't know. Also, let's look at our first story of the day, the 18 to 21-year-old firearms handgun ban. What would have happened if someone in that building had had a firearm and been able to stop him? How did both of these shootings get stopped? The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is, come on, fill in the blank behind me, throw it in the chat. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is we know, good guy with a gun. So it is what it is, folks, but we'll follow out of that one. All righty. Before we get any further, I definitely want to throw out there, for those of you all, if you're involved in EMS or emergency medical services at all, I want to thank Valor Medical Services for their sponsorship and their support of our programs. They do offer an extensive array of online EMS continuing education. We know research season is coming up now. If you need research hours, continuing education, or anything like that, check these folks out. It's academy.valormed.net. You can go on there. You can get full year subscriptions where you can get unlimited content, or you can just go ahead and take 1 or 2 courses if that's all you need. Let's say you just need an hour in pain management or stroke or ventricular assist devices or evidence-based medicine or EMS research, things like that. Some of these little topics that fall through the cracks on your research packet, guess what? They've got courses that'll cover all of that stuff. They're nationally approved. They do direct report to National Registry. And as a result of that, you don't even have to do the data entry. They will send it in for you. Kind of nice the way they can do that. Works out really well. So if you do, check them out. If you do anything, you get a 15% discount with the coupon code Gun Club. So again, hats off to Valor Medical. Thank them for sponsoring our programs and supporting the growth of this channel, which has absolutely been wonderful. I know from the stream we had Tuesday night, we had a really, really good turnout. Seemed to be really well received. I'm enjoying actually bringing guests on. We had, if you haven't checked it out yet, go back. It should be in the playlist. We had Bill Kennedy on, who's another local firearms instructor here with me. He also has got a background in law enforcement, and it's just really interesting to have 2 people on a stream. I had never talked to Bill in person prior to that night. Still haven't had a chance to meet him face to face, but we talked online that night, and you hear the same things. You know, gun control is not working. It has not worked. It has been proven not to work. Some of the cities with the most aggressive gun control, it's not helping. You look at the cities with some of the highest murder per capita totals. What's not working? Gun control. When you have a city that's basically a de facto no carry zone, guess what? The criminals are ignoring it, but they know their victims are not. Good guys follow the law. Good guys follow gun-free zones. Bad guys who are intent on committing murder, killing 3 people, they're not really worried about getting busted with a gun in a gun-free zone. So that sign to them just says soft target area. It is what it is, folks. All righty. Now, a little bit of a change of pace. We're going to do our good guy or good girl with a gun. And this one comes to us, first off, out of Knightdale, North Carolina. Officers announced that a lawfully armed homeowner will not face criminal charges for shooting and wounding an intruder who forced his way into the home through a shattered window. The suspect was treated for a non-life-threatening injury, is charged with felony breaking and entering with intent to terrorize. This was the 4th time since November of 22, so 4 times in a 1-year period, an area resident was known to use deadly force in lawful self-defense. 4th time in a year, a resident lawfully used a firearm to defend themselves. Anyone who didn't have one, well, I guess they couldn't defend themselves. Folks, we see this pattern time and time again, and it is what it is. Beyond that one, we have this on December 3rd, so this is over the weekend. Sandy Springs, Georgia homeowner fatally shot an intruder who broke into his home in the middle of the night and threatened him. Imagine that. You're asleep at home, middle of the night, someone's breaking in, and the simple fact of life is you're going to deal with them or they're going to deal with you. The fact of life, if you can't protect yourself at that moment, even we had the police officers, they're going behind, that whole thing through Austin. They didn't even realize it was the same person until finally they put it all together. At that moment, the people whose house he broke into who were killed, what would have been different if they had been able to protect themselves? I go out to the range on a regular basis. I teach on a regular basis. I don't necessarily want to see anyone get shot, good guy or bad guy or anything else. Of course, not a good guy. I don't even want to see the bad guys get shot. But I do want to see the good guys and good girls go home in one piece. Not attacked, not beaten, not killed, stabbed, whatever the case may be. I want to see them able to protect themselves, protecting their families. I want to see the mama bears protecting their kids. And we see it almost every week on here on the good guy with a gun or good girl with a gun routines. Also, from last Thursday, Granada Hills, California, resident, shot intruders who broke into their home at 5 a.m. Suspect fled. None of the residents, including an unspecified number of children, were hurt. Now, what does that explain to? Very simply, someone is breaking into a house. That resident said, no. You come into my house, you threaten me, my family, my kids, my safety. They shot at them. Well, one suspect fled, one suspect fatally wounded. Police get there in time to do the report. I'm not faulting the cops for not being there faster. I'm not faulting the cops for doing all they can do. But we're looking all over the country at law enforcement agencies that are struggling to get to calls in a timely manner. And the more it happens, the longer you're alone with that bad guy. And if he, she, or it is armed, guess what? You have to be able to defend and protect yourself. That's why we train. That's why we drill. That's why Bill, who was on here the other night, trains new shooters. And I put it out there before, and I'll put it out there again. If you're in the upstate of South Carolina area and you know absolutely nothing about guns, never had one, think they're scary, think they're bad and awful, and you want to sit down and you're willing to sit down and learn, I'm willing to sit down at the training room with you and go over one-on-one all the safety stuff. And if you want to go beyond that and go to the range, great. If you say, no, thanks, it's not for me, much respect. If you want a cup of coffee, go ahead and grab yourself one. I get that, not for everybody, and I respect it's not for everybody. But I urge people who thought they may never need one to reconsider. At least consider, at least make an informed choice, at least learn something. If not from me, from one of the other firearms instructors around the country. We're blessed to have many great firearms instructors, not only here, but all over the country. Get with somebody. Go to your local range. Ask someone. Go to your local gun club. Ask someone. We're seeing more and more need for defensive uses of firearms. Got this one, was out of Hampton, Virginia. A man tried to carjack a driver at gunpoint, but the driver was armed and was able to shoot the carjacker. Now, the man is suspected of having successfully carjacked a different victim 2 hours earlier. So what happens if an armed man comes up to your car and says, give it to me? Okay, it's insured. You can give it to him. But even then, if you comply, there's no guarantee they won't shoot you. There's no guarantee they don't get you out of the car and then shoot you as they drive away. We never know. What we do know is if you shoot first, if you're able to protect yourself from that armed carjacker, from that armed person breaking into your house, that's how we survive. So, folks, that's all I've got for this evening. I knew it would be a short show. Actually working on a really cool project right now. Going to be doing a review. I don't know if you're familiar with the documentary that came out called Infringed. It's produced by Lauren Southern, also Timcast Media. If you're not familiar with Lauren, she's definitely a very interesting, intriguing lady. She has traveled all over the world. She's in her mid-20s, traveled all over the world as a documentary filmmaker and creator, and she's really done some cool stuff. And I'm anxious to see how she does with this movie, Infringed. It's available through timcast.com, so I'm going to let you know, probably be doing the review of that in the next week or so. As a little change of pace, palate cleanser, what have you. just to get into some different things. Folks, I appreciate your time. If you would be so kind, if you like our content, give us a thumbs up. Throw something up in the chat. Let us know that you're out there. Let us know you're listening. And by all means, share this out with your friends. I'll say what I said the other night. We're still at a point in this country where I think we're at about the 20-60-20 rule, or maybe 25-50-25. We've got 20-25% of the people. They're the 2A defenders. They're the carriers. They're the ones that are ready to protect themselves. We've got about 50% in the middle that, well, they don't carry all the time. They may or may not own a gun. They're not really against guns, but they've never really thought about it, never thought they needed it. And we've got the other 25% that absolutely positively won't have anything to do with them. They think they're bad, they're wrong, they're evil, and the only person who would have one is an absolutely psychotic maniac. Folks, if you're willing to learn, even if you're not familiar with guns or you're anti-guns now, if you're willing to learn, you're willing to meet me halfway, I'll be more than happy to meet you halfway. I'm more than happy to take you out to the range, get you a chance to practice, get you a chance to see what it's all about. Learn something. And at least if you decide it's not for you, you'll be making an informed decision, not a knee-jerk decision, not a decision that's based on emotion. Knee-jerk decisions. For example, the press conference last night about assault weapons because somebody used a handgun. Knee-jerk decisions are never good. We don't make good knee-jerk decisions. Make an informed choice for yourself, for your family. And please support places like Second Amendment Foundation if you can, GOA, NAGR, all these wonderful entities, because they are out there fighting on the front line for our rights, for all of our rights. And it's not a me thing or a you thing or a one-person thing. Second Amendment rights are human rights. So by all means, please be smart, be safe, take care of yourself. Bye.